So we're going to talk to now the founder of the majority. That's a voice for the Scottish anti-nationalist majority, Mark Devlin. Hello, Mark.
Hi, Kevin. How are you today?
I'm very well. Extraordinary day, though, up in Scotland. Your thoughts on former First Minister Nicola Sturgeon being arrested? I mean, it wasn't entirely unexpected, but nevertheless, you know, this is a colossus of Scottish politics, a woman who ruled the roost almost with a rod of iron for many years, spent today in the nick, being investigated, interrogated by the police over this missing money. An extraordinary turn of events.
Yes, it is, certainly. And you have to excuse me because I can barely hear you because of the sound of champagne corks popping all around this neighbourhood. Basically, it's both a celebration and a tragedy. It's a celebration because the majority of Scots who are not nationalists and who didn't vote for Nicola Sturgeon are finally seeing that this queen of virtue signalling has got her comeuppance. You know, for ever since the referendum, she has been browbeating her opponents and continuing the division that's happened in Scotland. And it's so good to see that instead, you know, the person who basically got her followers to call us traitors and bully us and talk down to us, that she has got their comeuppance. And it's also a tragedy because so many Scots were fooled by Sturgeon. They thought that she could... they believed that she could run Scotland better and that she was morally superior to the English Westminster, they like to say, political class. And now that she's been arrested, it's just proof that she is not the colossus, actually, that you said, and she's just another politician who has some very dodgy goings on.
Well, we must stress that she hasn't been charged with anything. She denies any wrongdoing. Got to be careful here. But as I say, sure, an extraordinary fate for someone who was so powerful. I mean, don't forget, until February, you know, she was the First Minister. She was the ruler of Scotland. And today... she spent hours in the nick being interrogated by cops over this missing money. So certainly she's nothing proved against her, but she certainly seems to have fallen a long way. Apart from this situation, Mark, what about her? How did you feel about her? You talked about her virtue signalling, you know, her extreme wokery, you know, this idea of putting rapists, male rapists, into female jails, a decision that she had to backtrack on very, very quickly, and actually ended up being her downfall. It was a step too far. Why did Nicola Sturgeon take the Scottish National Party down woke alley? Why did she want to bring it into the Scottish national equation, you know, putting male rapists into jails, into female jails, all this nonsensical far-left wokery? Why didn't she just concentrate on an independent Scotland if that's what she wanted?
Well, she couldn't concentrate on that. That's the basic point, because it was a dead end. She took it to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said, Scottish Parliament does not have the competence to run a referendum on whether Scotland can be independent and whether the UK can be broken up. So there was a dead end. So she was grabbing for any kind of policy that she liked herself, and she's very much beholden to the Scottish Greens. And in fact, the SNP right now are still very much beholden to the Scottish Greens, and they are basically the tail that's wagging the dog of Scottish policy. You see all the gender reform bill, which has been a disaster, brought down Nicola Sturgeon. We saw this recently. We've had, I don't know if you heard about that. There's a deposit return scheme that's been abandoned. A bottle deposit return scheme has been abandoned up here, and a number of other green policies that have been all over the news here, and basically while there's been no SNP policies at all. So this is the problem. It's a single issue party that doesn't have actually its main issue anymore. So it's a dead end party, and people are beginning to realise it's not only just they've been led down a dead end, but that the people that led them down a dead end are potentially potentially, involved in kind of wrongdoing, and being arrested is not really. It's not a good look for the party. I mean, you had Alex Salmond previously also was arrested as well. We've had loads of SNP members, MSPs and MPs have been involved in all kinds of scandals, sexual, financial, and so on. And this is what happens. I think hopefully people in Scotland can wake up and say, this is what happens when you put one issue above everything else. When you put independence above every other issue, what's going to happen is you're going to elect a bunch of grifters, gropers and no-hopers. That's basically what's going to happen.
Do you feel Hamza Yousaf, the current leader of the SNP, current First Minister of Scotland, seems to have indicated that he won't be suspending Nicola Sturgeon while this investigation continues. But normal practice is, well, no one's suggesting she's guilty of any wrongdoing, but when a sitting MP is accused of something like this, the normal practice is they have the whip suspended, they tend to make themselves scarce until the investigation is complete. And yet Hamza Yousaf seems to be sort of shrugging his shoulders, saying nothing to see here, Nicola can carry on as an MP. Well, that's
he's a weak man, he's a weak leader, basically. He's as I say, he's totally beholden to the Greens. They're running the whole policy of the SNP right now. And if he doesn't get rid of Nicola Sturgeon, then it just shows that he's got no leadership at all. It kind of beggars belief that he wouldn't take action on this. But then again, he styled himself as the continuity candidate. So this is the continuity. Continuity is we'll continue with the grifters and the gropers and the no-hopers and see how we get on.
Continuity of the shambles. Nicola Sturgeon has said, "I am certain I have committed no offence." That's what Nicola Sturgeon is saying today after hours in a police station being interrogated about a missing £600,000 worth of Scottish National Party funds. They're also investigating, of course, Mark, the fabled £110,000 luxury mobile home that was parked outside Peter Murrell's mum's house for many months. So the picture is not good. How are people in Scotland reacting to today's events? How have they been reacting to the arrest of Peter Murrell, the arrest of Colin Beattie? I mean, it must have undermined the Scottish people's faith in their ruling party.
Well, I think it undermines their faith in the institution. And you can see I have this here, Abolish Holyrood T-shirt. And we think that after 25 years, it's time that we actually looked at the system and see what has it produced for Scots? Has it actually made Scottish life any better at all? What we've ended up with, in fact, is we've ended up with Alex Salmond and we've ended up with Nicola Sturgeon. And we've got are the lives of Scots any better? Our followers certainly don't think so. But I'll tell you quite an interesting thing. We were in the zoo, actually, today when this news came through, right in front of the pandas. And this guy was there, and he was defending Nicola Sturgeon to his friends. He was basically shouting out, "But Boris Johnson had got his wallpaper paid by donors, and we're like, what? You still believe it after all this? That's what you've got. Yeah. It's like you've been led up and down the hill for all these years about whether you're going to get independence or not, when it was always going to be a dead end. And now that's all you can talk about, Boris Johnson's wallpaper. Look at the disasters right in front of your face. That's what's happened. We've had 25 years, Scotland's devolution disaster, and it's time it was rethought and the whole institution was done some in a different way. And we need to have an honest conversation about how these people were allowed to get into positions of power and then, to use them the way they have.
Yeah, as Alex Salmond did warn Nicola Sturgeon because he felt that, absolute power, which the SNP had for many years, was too centralised, particularly given that the First Minister was married to the Chief Executive of the party. So that when you have absolute power and it's very centralised among a very few people, it can lead to problems, and it certainly does seem to have led to problems here. Mark, excellent to talk to you. Thank you very much for your time. That's Mark Devlin, founder of The Majority. They call themselves the voice for Scottish anti-nationalist majorities.